think
So,
that's a very real feeling that a lot of people in our community feel,
Yes.
actually, around dating. That is important to highlight, where you feel shameful for having discernment or being specific. And I think this is where intuition is so important, because, I realized with intuition that a lot of times women were so intuitive, but we're also told to be really nice and to be kind to everyone and just to be the specific type of person. But our soul discerns. So our soul's very discerning of what's right for us and what isn't. And sometimes we don't listen to our intuition, which is our soul talking to us, because we feel like we have to be nice, or we feel like we feel bad for them. So I want to talk a little bit about that, like with the intuition in women. What have you noticed is one of the ways in which women deny their intuitive gifts?
So intuition, like you were just saying, Krista, is the language of the soul. It's mixed in with desires too, for sure, and the heart. It's kind of like all that area. But the tricky thing is that we actually have to have some sort of connection to the heart. Like, we have to be somewhat heart-centered to be able to accept the intuition, like to be able to be okay with this voice being a little different than what I've been taught, or what I've learned, or what other people are doing, because that voice is so unique to you that it's going to be different than the other people around you. It's going to be different than, even when you're in that relationship with this guy that you're, maybe he was like, I don't know why you're being so hard on me. Like, I don't know why you're expecting so much from me, but your voice is saying something a little different. And there has to be a connection and a trust in ourselves. And that really is a bit of a process, because nobody, like you were saying, like nobody really teaches us to trust ourselves. Like, we are really taught to trust everything else but ourselves in many ways. Like, trust what this person's telling you, or,
Trust the media.
Trust the media, trust
your teacher. Trust the doctor.
And we are, it really is like it's being thrown down our throat all the time, which I actually think, especially in the way where we are in the world right now, I think that is why so many of us are looking into intuition, because we can't trust anything anymore. And the only thing we can trust is ourselves, or not ourselves, but the soul. And I believe, like, what's so fascinating is, like, we're these little souls, we get thrown into this earth, we forget everything, like we have this whole forgetting, even though we are so powerful and have had so many other experiences, we forget everything. But to me, the heart and intuition is like the little compass that spirit put in us. So it's all the answers are there. We just have to be able to find it and access it. And actually, that's what lets us remember everything else. So it's so important. Like, it's such an important investment in yourself to find that voice. But we're just, we just ignore it all the time.
And what is...
You're like, pisses me off. And this is why I'm here. I'm on a mission. You're like, we just ignore it all the time. Ignoring.
Yes, bastards. And like, and even just like if you go back to just patriarchy programming, all that kind of stuff, like a woman, men, of course, have intuition. I know we're all with very intuitive men ourselves, the three of us. But the woman intuition was the original strength, because obviously men have always, as a species, been bigger than us. So they always had like that physical strength. But the woman always had this like intuitive strength. But in order to conquer the woman, we had to basically make the woman feel like she's crazy, that inner voice is crazy. And and now it's happening to all of us. It's not just men. It's not just women. Men are being abused in that way too. But there's like a kind of like a psychological, like, oh, what you're hearing inside is wrong. And that's how you get conquered. So originally we were conquered that way. And it's just been so many generations. So we're also dealing with our poor moms that didn't have that freedom to, and we're actually like fighting them and fighting all these other programming. And it's annoying that we don't listen to it, but I think it's also exciting. Like so many of us are waking up to it, and I think we're going to pass it on to our kids, and that's how the world changes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I guess what can, if people in the audience are wanting to just attune to intuitive hits, I guess what can they look, feel, sound like in the everyday? Because I think what is tricky is that doubt from the mind. That's like, oh, well, that happened to me yesterday. Like, that can't be my soul speaking to me.
Yeah, I think if you're just getting started, you have to give yourself a little bit of freedom. So if you enjoy your relationship to that doubt because it keeps you, it's good that we obviously discern and question and judge and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's not a bad thing. It keeps us safe. But if you feel very disconnected from your intuition, it's good to be just like, okay, for 1 week, I'm going to listen to like all my crazy thoughts. Like, I'm just going to, I'm going to let if I'm like, oh, I think that this is a sign, or I think that this is like bringing me somewhere. What's the worst? Guys, I feel like I need to give you guys a disclaimer, but I'm just saying that, like, what's the worst that can happen if you just give yourself a little bit of space to be childlike, to be a dreamer, to be curious, to play a little bit. Like, you don't have to be the inner parent all the time, like judging like everything. So you can just play with that you don't have to say I'm going to be like that for the rest of my life, but you can say I'm going to be like that for a week or so and see what happens. Because intuition, the energy of intuition is not the all-knowing. A lot of people get into intuition out of perfectionism. Like, we're trying to get into intuition because, like, great, I never have to make a mistake again. Like, I can just really get good at hearing myself. Awesome. Then I don't have to ever fuck up again. Sorry, I don't ever have to mess up again. Yeah. And that's not the energy of intuition. Actually, the energy of intuition is curiosity, because there's actually a lot of unknown in following your intuition. Just because, for instance, the example of we saw a suit. Okay, like, I don't know exactly when. I don't know is it really a suit? Like, but this is what I'm being led to, and there's so much mystery behind that. So that's the other reason why we don't let ourselves let go of that doubtful talk, because we want certainty, and we assume that intuition equals certainty. And actually, intuition, there's so much mystery in intuition, and there's also the vibe is curiosity. So if you can just stay in a curious place and be like, you know what, I actually don't know for sure if this is it, but I just feel like excited about this. I feel like I'm supposed to follow this. I'm supposed to go there. That is the beginning of getting to know your intuition. And then with time, it gets like very on point, because you've learned the energy. It's kind of like getting to know a friend. Like, you have a good friend and you're like, oh, that's so Krista. Like, that's such her vibe. Like, I can actually even hear her voice in this or something. That's how you're getting used to your own intuition. You're getting the energy. You have to get to know it. So you can't stop it midway. You have to be open.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Morning Microdose by Almost 30.
We hope you enjoyed waking up.
As always, we encourage you to take what resonates and leave the rest. If you enjoyed this trip, tune into the full episode on the Almost 30 podcast. All episode information can be found in the show notes.
Make sure to subscribe, and if this becomes a part of your morning routine, be sure to share it with a friend. We have new inspiring doses Monday through Friday. Follow us on Instagram at Morning Microdose, and follow Almost 30 at Almost 30 Podcast.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the vortex.